Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you making the extra effort to be here this evening and joining us. Our first order of business is the invocation and pledge of allegiance from Miss Irene Behrens.
Good evening, everyone. It's interesting being up here on stage, having been an art person all my life. I'm about ready to put on my false eyelashes and red lipstick so y'all can see us well. A lot of times I like to open with a poem, and this, I actually have two. This one is Vacation End. It's by Leslie Pinckney Hill, and I'll tell you about him in a minute. From the charm of radiant faces, from the days we took to dream, from the joy of open spaces, from the mountain and the stream, bronzed of sunlight, nerves a-tingle, keen of limb and clear of head, speed we back again to mingle in the battle for our bread. Now again the stern commanding of the chosen task is heard, and the tyrant, care, is standing, arbiter of deed and word. But the radiance is not ended, and the joy, whate'er the cost, which those fleeting days attended, never can be wholly lost. For we bring to waiting duty, to the labor and the strife, something of the sense of beauty and a fairer view of life. The author of that poem was an African-American educator, writer, and community leader. He was the son of a former slave. He was born in Lynchburg, Virginia, where he attended primary school locally and played the trumpet. His family moved to East Orange, New Jersey, where he attended high school. Hill excelled in his studies so much in school that he skipped his junior year and was accepted to Harvard University his senior year, which was amazing in that day and time. He entered Harvard in 1899, supplementing his scholarship by working as a waiter. There he attended the classes of William James and was active in debating. He was elected to Pi Beta Kappa and graduated cum laude. After graduation in 1903, he stayed another year for a master's in education. Hill taught at Tuskegee Institute from 1904 to 1907 and was principal of the Manassas Industrial Institute from 1907 to 1913. In 1913, he became principal at the Cheney Phillip Institute for Colored Youth, overseeing changes in name and status, and staying there until 1951 and its establishment as Cheney State Teachers College. In 1944, he founded Cape Hope, a camp for underprivileged children in Delaware County. Hill was part of the Harlem Renaissance, and he died from a stroke in 1960. It's amazing that the man had time to write poetry. One last short poem by him, and this one is The Teacher. Lord, who am I to teach the way to little children day by day, so prone myself to go astray? I teach them knowledge, but I know how faint they flicker and how low the candles of my knowledge glow. I teach them power to will and do, but only now to learn anew my own great weakness through and through. I teach them love for all mankind and all God's creatures, but I find my love comes lagging far behind. If you would, join me in the pledge. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. you, Ms. Behrens. We are now going to move on to recognitions, and we are thankful that Dr. Rivera is going to recognize each of our honorees this evening.
So it's good to be with everyone. I'm going to project through this mask. I want to just say, while we have an auditorium full, I want to say thank you to two gentlemen who are making tonight's broadcast possible. Mark Patterson, to you in the back, the man behind the scenes. If you'll just take a wave. Mark, thank you so much for allowing us to use this space and to give us a safe place to hold our board meetings. And I want to say a special thank you to Josh Dempsey. He is behind the scenes, but he's running Blue Devil News, so we can make this broadcast available to others. So this was our transition from Zoom to in-person, and I just offer a heartfelt thank you to Mark and to Josh, two very dedicated staff members who work all day long for kids, and then tonight they work for you and for the board. So thank you, gentlemen. So I'm going to start as our board chair referenced. We've not been able to do recognitions in quite some time, and I can tell you that since March, I've had board members saying, when can we, when can we, when can we, and tonight we can. So I appreciate the commitment of our board, and we are excited to play a little bit of catch up, but also at the same exact time honor some people who've really made some, not only this year special, but made some significant contributions to Marietta City Schools. Just a moment for how we're going to walk through this. As I call you up, I'm going to invite you to come on up and walk up through what would be your left side of this auditorium. You can come up on stage as if you were Miss Barron's dance partner. There's an X right on the center of the floor, and you can stand there. And if you're a family, you can stay together, obviously. If you are a staff member who's part of this special recognition, you can spread out accordingly. But let me start. I want to invite a young lady up from Dunleavy, and if any other staff members are here, I see a principal jumping up and down in the back. You can jump up on stage. But if I could please have Gabrielle and her family come on up, along with maybe her principal and her teacher, anybody else who's here to celebrate her. If you want to come on up the left side, Ms. Coviello is down in the front, and she will show you where to go, and you can come right up on the center stage. You guys can all come. And while they're doing that, I'm going to ask if Ansley, and I know her principal, who's also jumping in the back, if you want to meet back in that back corner, Dr. Johnson, if you want to show her where to meet, we will have them, that family, teed up for the next. We'll let them pass through and let the next recognition go. So if I could have Gabrielle and Miss Richardson come on up with the family. And then Dr. Johnson, anybody else who may want to be included with Ansley is certainly welcome to join you once we honor this first young lady. Come on up there, smart girl. How are you? You look great. Your family can come on out. So I know that we have some staff members that are here to celebrate her also, and family. Let me start. Gabrielle is a 5th grader at Dunleavy. She's described by her teacher and by her principal as someone who's a great listener. She's a great learner, always prepared and participates. When we think about the standard of excellence at Dunleavy and what we want every student to strive to be, Gabrielle is a model student at Dunleavy. One of the things that I read about you, Gabrielle, that was so impressive to me, and normally I'd be like standing next to you with my arm around you, so I'm just going to like send love from 10 feet away. But I want you to know that when I asked your staff members how you were as a Dunleavy Dolphin, they talked about how respectful and caring and considerate you are. So while I always want you to be one of the smartest kids in the classroom and in the building, what I care perhaps even more about, I know your family does too, is your character. We could not be more proud tonight, Gabrielle, on behalf of your family, everybody here, and you can turn around. All the board members would normally shake your hand, but they're just going to wave at you, sweetheart. So turn around, they're all waving you. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, would you join me in honoring our star Dunleavy Dolphin, Gabrielle Pelch, as our Student of the Month for March 2020. Thank you, Gabrielle. So we're taking a bunch of pictures. We'll make sure we give them to your family. And if you want to exit, sweetheart, right, follow your principal right up the stage. Congratulations. Thank you all for joining us. And just as we continue to do this, as Ainsley comes up on stage, we will honor all of our award winners here in the next few minutes, and then when we're done, we'll give you a chance to leave unless you're really excited to hear more about all of our board stuff. But you'll have a chance where you can step out. So this is Ainsley. Ainsley is from A.L. Burris. We're excited to honor you and your family, and I see your principal standing there. I also, while I'm doing this, I want to invite Summer Smith and her family to go ahead and join Susan Coviello over on the side of the auditorium. Ainsley. Ainsley is a 5th grader at A.L. Burris. She gives 100% in everything that she does. And I thought this was so awesome, Ainsley. They were talking about the last 6 months of virtual learning and all the STEM assignments that you've completed and all the experiments with your family. Is it true that you really made your own lava lamp? And did you hatch butterflies? Can you show me how to do that? Because I have a 2nd grader who loves butterflies, and we don't have enough of them at our house. So if you want to come over from 6 feet away, you could show me how to do butterflies. And then you also learned how to cook meals and cook snacks? Do you deliver to the central office of the superintendent? Let's talk about it. Or to Burris, yes. If you want to pass 5th grade, you may need to deliver to your principal. But Ainsley, you are a straight A student, and Dr. Johnson described you as the model student who gives your best at all times. And if we had every single A.L. Burris Beaver and Marietta Blue Devil who showed your class, your work ethic, your lava lamp, your butterflies, your meal delivery, remember? We would all be better. So I just want to thank you for who you are and what you stand for. You earned this Student of the Month for September because of your character and your hard work. And everyone here is so proud to celebrate you. Would you join me in celebrating Ainsley? And Ainsley, if you want to turn right around, the board's all going to give you a wave and blow you a kiss. Congratulations. And I know both Ainsley and Gabrielle both got gift cards, so that way you can take your superintendent and your principal out for dinner. Right, Ainsley? But I want to congratulate you on behalf of the board and on behalf of everyone here. Thank you for working as hard as you have. We're all so very, very proud of you. Congratulations. You guys can slide off that way. Thank you. And Summer, as soon as that sweet family walks by, I want to invite you and your family to come on up to the stage. And then Anita, thank you. I see you and your unicorn over there. I want to honor Summer Smith. She works in our Department of Student Services here at the central office, and she works with assistive technology. She's a specialist. And Summer, I'm going to deviate way off script to just tell you a personal story for a minute. Over the course of this virtual learning, there have been so many families, particularly of our students with disabilities, who've talked about what a struggle virtual learning can be and how dependent they've become on our staff. And I can tell you there have been conversations where families have referenced you by name and all that you have done to get assistive technology and support to children. And what I want you to know is that for all the extra time and effort, possibly even away from your family, that you gave so that way our children could continue to learn, especially those who are most deserving, I want you to know that the families recognize it, the principals recognize it, tonight the board, superintendent, and everybody watching recognizes it. We couldn't be more grateful to have you on our staff, bridging the gap between our children and their needs. We're better because you are here. Thank you, Summer. And Summer, before you split, you also, I'm going to let you wave, you get a wave and a kiss from the board from a distance. And you also have a gift card coming to you, so you can take us out to eat. Thank you. And then as Anita comes up, I'm going to ask if our KSU Tier 1 graduates could go over there with Susan Coviello, and we will honor you next. I'm pleased to bring to the stage a unicorn. Come on, girl. Honey, that is a beautiful dress and a beautiful unicorn, little horn. Can you spin? Can everybody see your beautiful dress? Can you twirl? No? There you go. Beautiful. Anita, with her daughter, also unicorn, and husband. Anita is an accountant with our finance department. She's been with us since 2017. Anita, again, I don't need a script to talk about the difference that you've made in our district. Once upon a time, there were principals who very much wanted more support, and they asked for more help from finance. And Erin Franklin, our CFO, would find you. She kind of described you as her unicorn, right? Someone who could be such a gift to principals, and I think every principal in this district knows how quickly you will leave your office, you will run to a school, or now virtually, and be available to support principals and all the work that they do. For what you do each and every day to make sure that our principals and their bookkeepers in our schools have what they need when they need it in a way that is fiscally responsible, I can't thank you enough. You have made such an impact on this district because you've been the right arm for so many bookkeepers and principals, and certainly central office as well. So to you, to your unicorn, to your entire family, we are so grateful that your family are Marietta Blue Devils and that you're in our finance department. Thank you so very much. So Anita, you can turn. I need a unicorn. Unicorn, can you blow a kiss to everybody? Anita, do I remember correctly? Kindergarten, right? Awesome. She's in kindergarten. Go home and read. All right, it's my pleasure as that family passes by, as Anita's family passes by, to invite our KSU graduates up. Did any of you bring your kids and they want to come up? Oh, come on. It's like an awesome moment to celebrate mom and dad. Come on up. Come on up. It's okay. Run, 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 run. They tell you can't run in school. Yes, you can. Run, 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 run. Awesome. There you go. I know you're proud of your dad. Stand with him. So I am pleased to share with you, standing before you are a group of leaders here at Marietta City Schools, and they recently completed a Tier 1 leadership program. This program was a collaborative partnership with Kennesaw State, and we are grateful for all their time and investment. Not only did they complete all the coursework required by Kennesaw State, but they also gave 240 leadership hours specifically for Marietta City Schools. And what I want everyone to understand is that Marietta City Schools has been in a partnership with Kennesaw State to really cultivate, support, and grow our own leaders. So not only did these folks volunteer as they were in each building, raise their hand and say, we want to be a part of this program, but again, they invested in the coursework, they invested in the real-time, real-world leadership opportunities that were created in Marietta City Schools to the tune of an additional 240 hours. What I want to say to each one of you, and I say this personally, on behalf of Belinda Walters-Brazil, our Deputy Superintendent, all of you have left such an impact on so many of us at the central office. And you not only were leaders in your building during the school day, but then in addition to that, gave of your time to support all the different leadership opportunities. You invested, you threw yourself in so many different programs, so many different ways in which you wanted to learn more and grow as a leader. I can tell you this, and I think the board needs to hear this, when you think about the future of Marietta City Schools, if it's in your hands, it's extremely bright. And I can't wait to see the impact you will have, not just in our schools, but on all students, both here and beyond. We're so grateful and proud of what you've accomplished. I want to call you by name, and you can kind of wave, and or your kids can wave on your behalf. Chelsea Bargallo, Eddie Lewis, Jessica Strickland, Meryl Sperling, and Ann Payton Watts. So board's going to give you a wave and blow you a kiss. I think that's in our standard protocol. Thank you. We appreciate you. But again, to each and every one of you, thank you for what you've invested and the difference that you've made. We're honored and thrilled that you're a Blue Devil. Thank you. next I'm going to call forward as they're exiting, once the path is clear, Nicole Lawson, Janet Tharp, and Erica Moore. Welcome. I'm not going to make it awkward by blowing you a kiss, I promise. For $75,000, I want to, but I'm not going to. But let me just acknowledge each of you, if you don't mind, and just so people know who's who, let me just read your name and title. Nicole Lawson, Regional Director, Northwest, United Way of Greater Atlanta. Also, Janet Tharp, Cobb Advisory Board Chair, United Way of Greater Atlanta. And then Erica Moore, Senior Program Officer, Prosperous People Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta. To those in this audience, there are so many of you and those that are listening who've wondered, how has Marietta City Schools been able to push through since March and do things that we believe are special, different, and better for our kids? It's an example is not only these three ladies and the support that they've offered us, but several people that we're going to be calling up here this evening. The Greater Atlanta COVID-19 Response and Recovery Fund is a partnership between the United Way of Greater Atlanta and the Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta. They gave Marietta City Schools $75,000 in a grant. To Nicole, Janet, and Erica, I can't thank you enough. As we were having conversations with families, and as our board knows, we have done dozens and dozens and dozens of town halls since March. And in all of those conversations, we've been able to be responsive to community needs because of your generosity. We are grateful for your partnership, and I just want to share with you the fund that you gave us and the money that you gave us allowed us to run a summer program with tutors, with educational technology for kids. We offered tutoring for kindergarten through 8th grade, and over half of our students participated in a 5-week optional program this summer that allowed them to get virtual live instruction from teachers. I'm going to tell all three of you, we could not have done that without your commitment and without your funding. So for what you've done to invest in Marietta City Schools, for what you've done to care for our kids, we've been able to do things that no other district has been able to do because people like you do things that nobody else is doing. So I offer a heartfelt thank you for the hundreds of families, and again I say as a context, over half of the K-8 students enrolled in an optional 5-week summer learning program because you gave us the money to do it. So I say thank you to you on behalf of not only everybody that's here on a board that will wave and probably blow you a kiss too, but I just want to say to each of you, for your partnership, know that we are committed to doing right by kids, and you allow us to do things that are special, different, and better. So I say thank you on behalf of all of our guests, and certainly on behalf of our board. Thank you so very much. And I want to call up John Maggard. John, it's good to see you. So John represents North Metro Church, and I'd love to take you back to a conversation that occurred weeks and months ago. John called me and just said, hey, listen, North Metro Church has always been a proud partner with Marietta City Schools. Like, what can we do to help? Because we want to step up. And they have been so actively involved in offering and wanting to create like childcare and so many other needs around food and supporting kids and what have you. And John said, hey, like, what do you need? And I said, John, there's two dynamics we're dealing with. One has to do with providing childcare for staff, and the other is technology. And I know that your congregation, under your leadership, as well as the church, took a Sunday where you dedicated it to Marietta City Schools, and through that, $50,000 has been donated to our school district. And John, I just want to say to you personally, every single conversation you and I had for weeks and months started with how can we help? And the reality is you helped in a big way. And for all that you've done to lighten the load for our staff, for all that you've done to put technology in the hands of kids and staff, I just can't thank you enough for what North Metro Church has done. And on behalf of everyone here, on behalf of the board, we honor and say thank you to you and the entire congregation tonight. So thank you. And as John exits, I want to call up my dear friend Sherry Martin. I'm not just calling her my dear friend because she's been part of getting us a lot of money. She's my dear friend. So Sherry, it's an honor to have you this evening. Thank you. So Sherry stands before us as the president and CEO of the Cobb Community Foundation. And we want to thank Sherry and her foundation and her colleagues for really coming to our aid. So we talked about supporting a summer program. We've talked about supporting childcare and technology. I want to share with you a little bit about what the Cobb Community Foundation did for Marietta City Schools. And initially they made a generous donation of $10,000 to help with our crisis aid fund, which really was dedicated to our social workers who were able to meet immediate needs of our students and families. Really, like in a crisis when it comes to food and clothing and supplies, and other families who may have immediate needs after a crisis, your $10,000 donation was routed to social workers who have been out in the field ever since our school doors closed. And then as that expanded, Sherry was also in the Cobb Community Foundation instrumental in an additional $25,000 that were routed to Marietta City Schools through Lockheed Martin. So we're grateful for that partnership and all that you have done to make that possible. Included in that was also, and I think this is important for the board and community to understand, Sherry and the Cobb Community Foundation was instrumental in us getting $4,000 that we could put towards social workers so we could train them in how to deal with social, emotional issues that children were facing. So it wasn't just enough to say, how do we help families who are in crisis, but it really became, let us get funds so we can better train staff to support families during a time that we've never seen in our lifetime. So Sherry, I say thank you for all that you've done to help us address the COVID-related trauma, because our staff was asking for that support, and through your grant, we were able to make it possible. And then you also provided an additional $21,000 for tutoring. And again, this was something, and I want our board to know, while we had these broader tutoring programs, through this $21,000 that was extended to the Cobb COVID-19 Community Response Fund, we're able to target specific needs of our English language learners who are most at risk for falling through the virtual learning gaps. And we've got families, we've got kids that are participating in that. Our schools are welcoming these kids back in small groups. And Sherry, I just say thank you for all that you have done to make that possible, from crisis needs to training our staff to ultimately allowing students to come in for tutoring. You've always, in every single thing that Marietta City Schools has done, you're the first person in line offering a hand to help. And I just say thank you for our partnership. I say thank you for our friendship. We're honored to celebrate you tonight. Your impact cannot be understated, cannot be overstated. Thank you. We also, board, we're going to recognize Lockheed Martin this evening, but they were not able to make it somewhat unexpectedly. So what I'm going to do is just say thank you to Lockheed Martin, and know that when we can get a date that we can wave at them and blow them a kiss on stage on the X, then we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera. We are transitioning now to the rest of our meeting, so if you would like to leave, you will not offend us. So. Okay, we're going to move on to 4.01, approval of the minutes from August 18th. If I could get a motion to approve the minutes, Ms. Barron, seconded by Ms. Minervini. All in favor? 7-0. And now approval of the minutes from our September 8th work session. If I could get a motion to approve, Ms. Orange, seconded by Ms. Minervini. All in favor? 7-0. We will now move on to adopting tonight's agenda. If I could get a motion to adopt the agenda, Ms. Barron, seconded by Mr. Waters. All in favor? 7-0. And now the consent agenda. If I could get a motion to adopt and approve the consent agenda. Ms. Minervini, seconded by Mr. Waters. All in favor? 7-0. We will now ask Ms. Franklin to come up for the financial report, 7.01, and also 7.02. Thank you, Ms. Franklin.
Good evening. Tonight we present the June 30th, 2020 financial reports. This has been an interesting year, financially as well as otherwise. We'll start with the cash balance report. You'll see that we ended the year with $6.5 million in our operating account. You'll notice that last line, the contingency fund, that was a transfer, which we can discuss later from when we look at the financial report, but $3 million came in to a contingency fund. We ended the year in investments with $32,459,000. SPLOST, $405,481. And school and nutrition ended the year $31,505. Total cash and investments at the end of fiscal year 20, $40,266,459. We can transition to the financial report, revenues, year-to-date. Actual year-to-date revenues were a little over $6.1 million, which was $4.6 million over budget. That's made up primarily of the $2.4 million we received in TAD revenue this year, $600,000 additional in TAVT revenue, $800,000 in other sales tax revenue, which was from refis, deeds, and so forth, because the housing market did so well in the last few months. Extra sales taxes there, and a midterm adjustment in QBE revenue from the state. Total year-to-date actual revenues, $113,578,764. We ended the year with expenditures year-to-date of $113,276,764. You'll notice that transfers to other funds, the last line on the expenditure report, year-to-date, $6,389,804. Those transfers out you approved in July. We moved $3 million to a contingency fund, $2.2 million to building fund, $150,000 to the Marietta Performing Arts Center fund. $95,000 was a transfer out in January to academic programs, and $950,000 in our charter transfer. If you go to the third page of the financial report, the summary, year-to-date actual revenues, $113,578,764. Expenditures, $113,276,764. That left $302,000. We need to roll $302,000 into end-of-year fund balance in order to maintain our 2 months of budgeted expenditures and fund balance. Our expenditure budget moved to $110 million this year, so we needed to increase fund balance to maintain 2 months of expenditures in there. Can I answer any questions on the general fund financials? On to food service. Food service ended the year with revenues of $4,609,190 and expenditures of $4,547,638. That ended up with revenue over expenditures of $61,552. That rolled into fund balance. They had begun the year with a deficit fund balance of $49,467. Adding the $61,552, they ended the year with a positive fund balance of $12,085. Can I answer any questions on school nutrition? Yes, ma'am.
Did school nutrition do better this year as opposed to previous years? Did they have a better year?
School nutrition?
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry, I can't.
Yes.
Yes. Well, they've had a couple of challenging years.
Mm-hmm.
Moving from Provision 2
Yeah.
caused a lot. So this year they've made a comeback.
Good.
With a positive fund balance, I think we're on the upward swing. It was difficult during closure. They did have the summer feed option, if you remember that, where they're able to feed every child. That's been extended now to December, so that will help them. Because it's difficult to get, a normal operation in the food service going during this optional school days and so forth. So summer feed option will allow them to increase their revenue through December, and then we'll revert back to non-provision 2 in January so far, is what we understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next item, 7.01, is a presentation of the FY21 district contracts. As we started last year, this is an information item, a list of district contracts for FY21 by department. So you'll notice the first page are the contracts that technology is in charge of. They total almost $1.8 million. You'll note some of these amounts in here are the full amounts for the entire contract. For instance, our financial software Munis that is the 7-year cost. There's a 1 year with 6 optional renewals. We can only contract for 1 year, but we often do multi-year contracts with options to renew to save money. So we'll bundle years together. The second page, you can see the total of the maintenance contracts, a little over $2.8 million. Then we move on to the third page. Actually, the contracts there are revenue contracts, the largest of which is our cell tower contract. And then special services, transportation, finance, communications, HR, the school nutrition contracts and community schools. And then Office of Academics is on the last page, primarily software.
And Aaron, if I may, I just want to offer one point of clarification that may be familiar to the board, but maybe not so much for anybody who's listening, and that is there is nothing in this document that is a new contract that hasn't already come before the board for approval. We just wanted to help you have one comprehensive list of every contract in which we're engaged. So I just wanted to make sure that for the board it's a reminder, but for our listening audience, it's really just one comprehensive list of everything that has already been approved by the board in the past.
That's true. If contracts are over $14,999, they do come to the board individually. Now, we do have some contracts for personal services are not included here. We'll contract with individuals to do teaching. Again, if it's over $15,000, y'all have approved it. And also local schools engage in a few contracts, not too many. Most of them run through central office.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Franklin,
Thank
for your
you.
thoroughness as usual. Now we're going to welcome Chief Flynn for a presentation regarding the partnership between Marietta City Schools and the Marietta Police Department.
And as Chief comes up, I was just going to preface briefly and say, Chief, I appreciate you and Major King joining us this evening. I want to offer a heartfelt thank you. There has been a long-term and long-time partnership between our district and the Marietta Police Department, and I'm grateful you've been in front of our board before. I thought this is a great opportunity to really update our board on our continued collaboration, but I wanted to start just by saying thank you to you and your entire department and the entire city for all that you do to support our schools.
Okay, well, thank you, and good evening, everyone. I thank you all for the opportunity to come and have a word with you this evening. I guess really things have been really strange for all of us, and I'm sure for you too in 2020. To quote Mayor Steve Tumlin in his State of the City address, is like he cannot wait until New Year's Eve 2021. It's been such an unusual year. But as Dr. Rivera said, it is absolutely true that we have a long-standing, very strong relationship. And years before this year, we have worked very hard for several years. As you all know, we faced the security problem of active shooters around the country. There were some tragedies, and we have worked year in and year out to protect our schools, and with nothing more than the goal always maintaining a secure, enriched learning environment for the students and faculty and staff. And it's been a great, very mutually rewarding relationship. I think we have had, from all the feedback we get, been a good relationship not only between our staffs and our leadership, but with parents and students and with teachers and faculty of the school system. So this year, just a quick summary of what's transpired this year. Earlier in the year, I guess it was just about March or April, we started some conversations with knowing that the new school year would be coming, and we set up a meeting to discuss where we are and what are the issues and what can we do to do the best job ever for 2020. And that was about March or April. We were still kind of in the throes of COVID, and a lot of people quarantined and whatnot, but we were optimistic that things are going to improve and school will start in the early fall, late summer, early fall, and what can we do? So we scheduled the meeting then. Well, the meeting was scheduled for June, and between that time, between when we scheduled it and we started it, I think we all know it's in the history books, all of the things that have happened, a lot of turmoil and problem, things that have called into, in some cases, called into question the role of school resource officers and what do officers do in school, and is it appropriate to keep them there? Is it acceptable to everyone? And all kinds of questions regarding school resource officers. So while our original, that all transpired before we had the meeting, and really what we had on our agenda to discuss was, well, in the coming school year, what can we do better to make sure that we prevent any incursion of gang members getting into our school system and doing things. And school systems everywhere, we benchmark with a lot of them, had that concern, and so we had some thoughts of ways of working with parents and working with faculty and staff, and we wanted to discuss those two things. However, we discussed those, and that's remained. I know it's been a priority for Dr. Rivera, the gang issue, and that everyone has struggled with that. And we had some ideas, but it really gave way to all that was going on in the environment at the time we had our meeting in June. So we got into the meeting, and against the background I've described, and we added some items to the agenda. First one we talked about with our school resource officers was diversity. Where are we going? What are our goals? And what are the expectations of the school board and the school system and so forth? And we came to some understandings there, and we've made some adjustments as a result of that discussion, and we're made some personnel moves and goals, and we're making progress on that one. We've already made those adjustments. Another issue that we discussed was the appearance of school resource officers. What's a more modern way, rather than have officers wear traditional looking police uniforms? Is that the best way to go in the current environment? And we made some changes in that. We made some modifications. You've all probably seen the new uniform appearance as school resource officers, and we've made that change, and we think that's a positive move. And probably the last thing that we discussed was let's take a hard look at the role of school resource officers in general. And we started talking about that, and I've got with me Major Jake King, and he is the commander in the Marietta Police Department, who is in charge of our entire school resource officer program. And I'm going to ask him to talk about something, but basically on that topic, what we came to was taking a look at the role and beginning by, what are the expectations of the school faculty and staff, administration? What do they expect in the current environment, school resource officers to do. And then we agreed we would do the same. How do our school resource officers see their ongoing role as we go forward? And let's see if there's any difference here. I mean, we don't want to have school faculty and staff having one set of expectations and ideas, and the school resource officers another. So let's find out if we've got any differences there, and do what we can to work together to work them out. So we had a lot of discussion about that, and actually we agreed to do a survey to Keith Ball, Principal Ball, is going to survey faculty and staff and ask them the same set of questions. We've already completed it with all of our school resource officers, and Major King can speak to that, but we have a meeting scheduled soon, and we're just going to hammer out and see if there are any differences there. So with that, Major King was part of the meeting that we were in with the superintendent, Mr. Ball, and he's very familiar with the national standards for school resource officers that is set by an organization whose acronym is NASRA, National Association of School Resource Officers. And the organization, there are state and federal standards, and we get all of our school resource officers certified, either certified as school resource officers in accordance, and they learn the national standards. So I'd like to introduce Major King to you and let him talk about those standards, and go over that briefly with you. And when we're done, we're certainly happy to entertain any questions or inquiries or anything. But there's one other thing I would like to say to you tonight, just to clear up. We've been through so many discussions since the beginning of the protests and things that we've been through the summer. And I've done numerous presentations, and I found that it's always helpful to put this on the table, and that is the Marietta Police Department. I am proud to stand up in front of you, look you in the eye, and tell you the Marietta Police Department is absolutely opposed to, do not condone in any form of racism. We do not condone and would not tolerate any form of police brutality, and we are opposed to any form of injustice that may occur at the hands of the police. It is not part of our DNA. Every member of our organization knows that. We are a value-led organization, and those things are absolutely foreign to us, and we wouldn't stand by for a minute if any member of our organization were to have any thoughts like that. So I don't mean to bend toward the negative, but I found it's best to get things, use a term of someone I learned a while ago, get the skunk on the table. Anyone feels that way, understand. I like to unequivocally state where we stand on that, and you've got my word. If you ever hear of any member of our department engaging in any even hints of behavior like that, please let me know, and I will promise you that they will be held accountable. Thank you. Major King.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys' time tonight. In summary of what Chief Lynn was talking about, first, you spoke about relationships and the relationship that the police department has between the school system and the city school system. To know that we've actually had school resource officers since 1992 within the school system. I actually reached out to the very first school resource officer we ever had today to ask him that question, because I didn't know either. I'm just going to bet nobody else did. I was like, man, 28 years of a successful program, which I believe is a successful program, and the relationship has been there and it continues. And what the chief was referring to is back in June, Dr. Rivera and Mr. Ball reached out and wanted to have a meeting to discuss, like Chief said, the world of what was going on today. It's just, it's here, it's in front of us, let's discuss that. And a very interesting thing came up, and I think you guys will appreciate this as being professionals in your own element and then volunteering for this board and being a part of that, is that if you answer a question like this, why do we do it this way? And your answer is, because we always have. That's a terrible answer, isn't it? It really truly is in all facets of life. So in that meeting in June, that was kind of the answer to some of the stuff from us in law enforcement. Well, we've had school resource officers for 28 years and it's been a successful program, but we haven't done a lot of other new things to it and updating. So it came up, and the term, which I really, really like, and I've used it quite a bit, and I think it came from Dr. Rivera, was role clarity. And I was like, that is actually excellent. So what the chief was referring to is we asked our officers 3 questions. What was your daily role in the school? What do you think it should be? And what do you think the administration thought it should be? Very simple questions. And we asked current SROs and previous SROs that same question. Anybody that served in the school system. And it was very interesting that those 3 things did not line up with each other. So what we realized because of the meeting that they called is that we did not have role clarity within our school resource officer program. So let's move forward. Let's get some role clarity. So we looked at the NASRO, the National Association of School Resource Officers, and we really liked their model. And it's very simple, that the number 1 priority for a police officer during the day, other than the big thing, active shooter school safety, right? That's what we're really, really there for. But beyond that, the very small percentage that something like that's going to happen, is their number 1 priority is role modeling. Number 2 priority would be mentoring. Number 3 is law enforcement duties when needed. Very simple. We liked it. We spoke with the school resource officers and like, absolutely. We love the part of putting role modeling and mentoring first. Because when we walk into a school, you cannot miss us, right? When a police officer walks in. And something I brought up during the meeting, I said, it would be really interesting to find the link of this. I can walk through myself, my wife's a 1st grade special needs teacher in Cobb County. I can walk through her school and I'm a hero to every child there. They will high-five me and love on me, maybe not today, but going forward they do. But somewhere between elementary school and later on, it's not necessarily viewed that way. So where is the disconnect? And there is somewhat of a disconnect, and that's what we spoke about. And to me, that's very progressive on the school board, on the director, on Principal Ball, and for us to meet together to discuss those issues and say, what can we do going forward? So that's where the role clarity came in, the role modeling, the mentoring, law enforcement. Yeah, we changed their uniforms this year. The color is a lighter blue. That color was developed in the late 90s for police officers, and the actual name of that color is approachable blue. There was a scientific study done that people, they find that color appealing and they want to go talk to that person. And so that's why you would see people that could remember your bicycle police officers would wear those baby blue shirts because that color was deemed approachable blue. And we did. We changed their uniforms to where it had that color into it. Very easy for it, and the officers are great. They're actually more comfortable uniforms than what I'm wearing today, so now they're really, really happy with it. So the support is there. And I think the role clarity meeting was outstanding. We have another meeting scheduled for early next week to discuss, hey, just to make sure this is what we're going to be doing going forward and that we're all on the same page. We're very happy with the relationship. We want it to continue. We see it on your end as well. Like it's there, it's right in front of us. We're supportive, you guys are supportive, and we look forward to when the students come back. There's some personnel changes. We changed our uniforms. We have some role clarity going there and going forward for the next 28 years, way beyond where I won't be here anymore. I don't think any of us will be. So that's all I had formally, and I was like Chief said, we would answer any questions if they are, but I can tell you from our perspective and our meetings that we have, we are very happy with the school system and our relationship. Yes, sir.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for all you do. Thank you for you and all your officers putting your lives on the line every day. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Yes, sir.
I think some of the things I had heard from some constituents when they read things in the media would say, with this change in roles and not the change in roles, but role clarity, right? Pivoting a little bit into the national model. Are we less safe? Are we degrading the law enforcement component? And so if you could just address that, because I think people watching would like to hear that.
Absolutely, and I can understand that concern, and I appreciate you bringing that out. No, you are not less safe. Our officers are still trained more than they were before and beyond. And I think by building relationships within the school system, students will communicate more with the officers and actually make it a safer environment for us. I can tell you on the very small percentage of the active shooter, the massive things that have happened in our country, our officers are in a top tier of the national standard. We've even hosted things here, multiple times within the school. So from there, nothing has changed, and we've actually made some adjustments in that tactical element. But I think by increasing and improving our role and our image within the school actually will make them even safer, nor do they feel like they've been removed back or less safe at all.
Yeah, thank you. And I acknowledge what you said about elementary, like when I see the officer at my elementary or my kid's school and you see the interaction, building that all the way through, I think, is an exciting goal ahead. So.
It is, and I think it's something, it was interesting, one of your new school resource officers that you haven't met yet, that will be here, when we approached him about it and asked him, he said, you know, it's funny because I am where I am today because of a school resource officer that mentored me and told me to go into the Marines, and I did, and this is where I am today. And he still talks to that school resource officer today. And actually, before he accepted the job with us, spoke with that school resource officer that retired a long time ago to say, hey, you changed my life all these years ago. I'm thinking about moving my career in this path.
That's awesome.
And to me, that's an outstanding story and exactly what we're going after, to keep the safety level that we have in our school and to improve it, and then also including that relationship building the best we possibly can.
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
First, thank you so much for joining our meeting, and thank you. My first question is around what the staff said, the role of a school resource officer, and what the school resource officer thinks their role should be. I was reading, I think, on the website of the organization that you said, they posted a statistic that really stuck out to me, that 30 to 40% of school resource officers said that they are involved in discipline issues in schools, but they don't think that their role should be that. Was that something that you found in your surveys? Like,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the survey you're talking about specifically. Must have been somebody else that did something very similar. What the officers brought up, which was interesting in role clarity, violations of laws versus violation of school rules.
Right.
So how much involvement should there be with police officers in violation of school rules? And it's interesting you bring that up because that's something we were going to discuss next week because it has come up as a topic.
Good.
How much should a police officer be involved? More than likely, not a whole lot, right? Versus because it's a violation of a school rule. You know, people will ask us all the time, we'll go speak at a business and they'll say, well, what if I violate my business rule of doing this, whatever it is? It's like, well, the law doesn't get involved in that because it's just a violation of your policy procedures for where you work at this company over here. And the law is not going to get involved in that. And so you're right, that is something that's come up multiple times. It has come up with us as well. And when we did our survey, yes, I just don't know what the percentage. And it is something that's being discussed.
Great. I'm glad to hear that, the role clarity and the focus on role modeling and mentoring, I think is going to be key. My second question is, have you seen, just in your work since our school shut down with COVID, that any chatter about students getting involved in these extremist groups?
No, ma'am, I have not.
Okay.
So, and we have a very robust cyber unit that kind of, if something was going to be concerning that involved a student that came across our radar, it would have come to me, and I have not. Not that I can recall. No, ma'am.
Thank you.
I had a quick question again. Thank you for your service to the
Yes,
school
ma'am.
and to the district. We appreciate it. In terms of, you mentioned going forward, you're looking to foster relationships in terms of being a role model and helping to mentor once we get into the upper grades, middle school, high school. Have you started discussing any plans as to what that's going to look like and how you're going to start to foster those relationships with the students?
Yes, the school resource officers, because for me personally, I don't know their daily function, you know, for the most part. But the school resource officers during that meeting had points where they're like, yeah, we could go into here. We can tell teachers, please invite us in to be a guest speaker so that we can speak about whatever topic it is that you want us to talk about. And we were really defining the difference between role modeling and mentoring. You know, mentoring is going to be them actually talking to a student, maybe because they are in this area, or the way that I understand it, maybe in school suspension, and that they could go to the library and speak to students there and have a very positive interaction versus, you know, the role modeling part that goes with, well, we're watched everywhere we go, and being good representatives here and at football games and you name it is a part also of role modeling as well. We also spoke about the building of the relationships too, that, well, if you are, and this is just part of discussion, if you are in the lunchroom, okay, you may be making sure everything's okay, but that doesn't mean you can't have some great conversations with people in a very relaxed environment while you were there. So that was part of the discussions of how to build those relationships, is to be more relaxed, I guess to use a lack of a better term, less unofficial, even though you are there as a part, as you are a guardian, you are a protector, you are there to help and assist in any way possible, but you can do it in a different way. Yes, ma'am.
I did want to ask, and it's something that worries me, the kids are not in our school building. And it worries me what's going on with some of these kids when they're not. Are we looking at more gang activity coming into our schools? Do we have a plan for that? Have we thought about that?
We've had a great relationship working with any type of gang activities happening within the school system. Previously and going forward, we do have gang officers that work within there, and then especially dealing with it here in the high school part of it, our officers are always a part of it, and they're actually gang resource officers that are there and available for it. That's something we work together and have a very robust plan in place that is not new to us. It's actually been in place for several years now and has been very successful for us. Yes, ma'am. The answer is yes.
If I could address, I'd like two quick comments relating to your questions. First, to the point that Mr. Waters made, it's the issue of trust. I'm sure as a school board and as educators, there are certain issues that are important to you. I know communication with your student body and parents and so forth. With police departments, it's the issue that we deal with every day is building trust. We need to build trust, in this environment with students, with teachers, with all of you. And we are absolutely dedicated to doing everything we can do. We need you, we need our community to trust that we are acting in their best interest, that we will never abuse or betray that trust. And, I just know that is something that's very important to us. All of the things that we mentioned here go towards trust building with, with modern students and parents and updating, but it goes to the trust issue. And the other comment I wanted to make was regarding the counseling role. We were talking about the roles of school resource officers, and something that I have seen, and we put a request in, is my officers that work in particularly in the middle schools, they tell me, it's one of the harder places for a school resource officer to work. And what a typical day is like for one of those school resource officers, they arrive for work, there are a group of students who are waiting to see them, and they want to see, and they are specifically seeking out, they want to talk to the police officer in their counseling role. And it's difficult for the officers because, as I'm sure you all well know, that students bring some very difficult social issues and personal issues, and they're often have tears in their eyes about things that are going on at home and things that make it hard for them to adjust to the learning environment. So that is a very crucial role, one that we take very seriously, and I say it's hard for those officers, but that's one of the 3 roles that NASRA says officers should have. But I can tell you, it's one where there's a lot of interest, and as you know, there are a lot of social issues out there that those school resource officers try to bridge between society at large and the school and learning environment. So,
And I might add a thing. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to just add a couple points, Chief, to you and to Major. And I want to once again echo what the board has said, which is thank you for your service to the city. And I have to tell you that I've been in multiple school districts and been able to see firsthand the collaborative partnership that we have, and I'm grateful for it. I wanted to offer just a couple examples for the board and maybe even for those listening, and then I'm going to maybe end it with just one clarification regarding role clarity, if I may. But I want everyone to understand there's an opportunity that we have to elevate our officers in a building. And really, as we look back, as Major King said, for the last 28 years, maybe even the last 10 years, there's things that we've asked them to do that has limited the impact they can have as individuals in our building and make them seamless and equal staff members to our children and role models. And I'll give you just 2 examples. One idea is we tell an officer they've got to be on lunch duty for 1, 2, 3, 4 lunch shifts a day. The reality is the officer is more valuable to our children when they're sitting down eating lunch with them, not when they're standing over a cafeteria line to make sure that every kid only gets 1 fork. Or by example, in the hallway. We can tell our officers, hey, I want you in the hallways, and somehow the relationship has evolved to when the warning bell rings, tell every kid to get to class. It's actually a very different relationship. How about walking with a child to class, not telling them they're running late, but asking them how their day's going. And I think that type of role clarity it's something that has evolved that I put on the shoulders of school officials, where we, and the third example is the one that you referenced already, I think you and Major did, the idea that we have an officer report to a classroom if a child is disruptive or won't sit in their seat. That's not illegal. That's an administrator's job. Putting an officer in that situation erodes the relationship that we're trying to build that we had in elementary school that we don't have in secondary. And I think those are the types of, listen, the officer's not telling the first grader to hurry up and get to class. The officer is not telling the first grader to only get one fork and get in line. They're not, and so as we look at those relationships, there's a lot we can learn. I wanted just one point of clarification because Jason alluded to this, and I'll be very specific. One of the criticisms that I received, I feel unfairly, when we came out, when some things were made public about the roles of the officers in Marietta City Schools, was that it was Grant Rivera who was deciding that our police department would have one of three roles. And we talked about mentoring and role models, but it was law enforcement, informal counselor, and teacher. And although you referenced it, I just wanted to one more time say emphatically, it is the National Association for School Resource Officers that recommends and defines the roles for how officers can be most effective in classrooms and in school buildings. And it really was, and I hope the board understands and our listening audience understands, in that meeting that we had in June, I remember Major King drawing out, hey, did you know this model exists? And I think we need to get more to this model. And I think what's unfortunate is that in time, somehow it became Grant Rivera's idea to not support the officers by asking them to be more role models and what have you, when in actuality, it was a collaborative discussion where MPD presented a national model, and we said, if we're going to do right by our children, we need to get to this place and get away from that place.
Sure.
But I appreciate that.
That is, that's exactly the way that happened, we all decided, here is the national model. We agreed, you agreed, we agreed, this is well thought out and a good role, and as time goes on, of course, we need to refine and customize it for our system and our parents' expectations and our teachers' expectations and school administration, but, you're absolutely right about that, national model, and it was always that.
Thank y'all so much. We just appreciate your service and your time this evening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I just have 30 seconds.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So, to finalize, ma'am, to answer your question, and ma'am, to answer your question, the school resource officers to build better relationships, and during that study was the same thing that Dr. Rivera just said about lunchroom and hall duty and all of that. So, yes, ma'am, to answer your question, to summarize, the school resource officers said the same thing on their own in a blind survey of how they can improve relationships. So, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to hear from Mr. Gardner regarding purchase of some Apple products for Hickory Hills.
Good evening. I've just got one item tonight. This is something that came to our attention after the work session, and it is a purchase that Ms. Bowden is wanting to make for support of her students in virtual instruction. It is for iPads and AirPods, so you'll see the combined cost of the quote there is $28,190. It will be coming from consolidated funds, and it is from Apple Education directly. It is an action item again tonight due to the sensitivity, the time sensitivity of this request. Do you have any questions for me?
Okay, if we could have a motion to purchase. Thank you, Ms. Barron. Second by Mr. Waters. All in favor? 7-0.
Thank you.
And thank you. And now I need a motion to enter executive session for personnel matters. Ms. Minervini, seconded by Mr. Waters. All in favor? 7-0. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we're back from executive session. If I could get a motion to approve the personnel action report. Ms. Orange, seconded by Mr. Weiner, sorry. All in favor? 7-0. And a motion to approve the administrative personnel action report. Ms. Minervini, seconded by Mr. Levine. All in favor? 7-0. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Rivera for superintendent's comments.
Yeah, I just once again want to say thank you to the board, Mr. Patterson, Mr. Dempsey, to our scholars who are here tonight helping out behind the scenes. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for making this possible. I appreciate you.
Okay, well, without further business, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.